That's it. You don't even get that title no more. You lost it. You're a sperm donor. And stopped the car when you was 13 and turned around and spit on you. I probably would have did the same thing. The fuck, bitch? You purposely burnt my baby. It's not a dog bite. I can pull up dog bites.
She didn't hire a lawyer. She didn't run to a blog. She just hopped on live and let everything spill with zero hesitation. NBA. YoungBoy's son's mother went online and said things people are still replaying in disbelief. She named names. She showed what she claimed was proof. And now millions are wondering if she just pushed NBA YoungBoy's entire career into a real crisis. On March 2nd, 2026, Arcola, the mother of NBA YoungBoy's son Kale, went live and released years of things she said she had been holding inside. No PR team shaping the message.
Let's see what dog bites look like. That's not a dog bite. That is a f***ing burn. I could see the brown at the top. That is a f***ing burn. And let KL tell it. He thinks when I got hit in the eye, it was his his SPERM space DONOR.
No lawyer telling her what to avoid. No polished statement from a rep. She turned on the camera, looked straight into it, and spoke like she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. When that live circulated, it took over every platform because she wasn't only talking about her personal situation. She was pointing out a pattern that people had quietly noticed for years. She brought up a marriage that many had been questioning, and she mentioned how her son came home from a visit with a mark on his hand that she refused to ignore. And the person she blamed for all of it.
You're not a dad. You're just a sperm donor. That's it. You don't even get that title no more. You lost it. You're a sperm donor. Think she's superior sitting in a house getting cheated on. You got some nerve to lie to me about my kid. That's why them be your husband down. My son didn't do. He's innocent. She still ask about your dirty. He still say he miss you. Anyways, I'm done. My TED Talk
was NBA YoungBoy's wife, Jaslyn Michelle. Arcola came prepared, and she clearly didn't come to play. But before breaking down exactly what Arcola said and why it hit the internet so hard, you need the full background. If you walk into this story without knowing who these people are or how the history connects, the whole situation won't make sense. So let's start at the beginning.
Man, I feel very wrong about a lot of things. How many lives I actually am responsible for when it comes to my music. How many kids and people have got in the car or put this in their ears and actually went hurt someone. And now I'm sitting back like, damn, I can't do it all in one day. But I promise to clean whatever I can clean. But it's gonna take time.
NBA YoungBoy, born Trell Deshawn G on October 20th, 1999 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is not your regular artist. He's not a temporary trend, not someone who gets hot for a moment and fades. He's a documented record-breaking force in the rap world, someone who has been dominating since he was a teenager and still has unmatched impact going into early 2026. He holds the record for the most Billboard 200 chart entries by any rapper in his lane. 34 albums charted, breaking a long-standing record and doing it in only 8 years of releasing projects. He's also the most RIAA certified rapper ever, with over 126 gold or higher certifications as a lead artist. Complex even put him on the cover and called him Best Rapper Alive for 2020. His Make America Slime Again tour pulled in around $70 million across 42 shows and moved more than 550,000 tickets. His YouTube channel sits at over 15 billion views, and for a stretch, he was the most watched musician on the whole platform. This man is not a trend. He is a full operation, a franchise, a walking industry on his own. But with all that success, his personal life keeps forcing its way into the spotlight. Because outside the booth, YoungBoy is juggling a situation most people can't even picture. 13 biological children with around 10 different women, starting when he was only 16. His oldest, Caden, nicknamed Draco, was born in 2016 when YoungBoy was barely old enough to drive. His youngest, number 13, was just announced by Jaslyn Michelle in late February 2026, only days before everything started blowing up. The timing on that had the whole internet talking. Jaslyn Michelle Hayes is YoungBoy's wife. They linked up around 2022 and made the marriage official in 2023. She has given him at least 3 children, with the newest baby arriving right before all this chaos began. On the outside, Jaslyn always moved like the calm, unbothered queen who doesn't get pulled into drama. She stayed away from messy blog moments, kept her page focused on family, looked put together, and let YoungBoy's loyalty paint the picture. That image, the clean, composed wife who seemed different from the rest of his circle, is exactly what Arcola walked in ready to challenge. Tear down brick by brick is exactly how people describe the way Arcola came in. She's often listed as YoungBoy's 7th child's mother, and she's the one raising his son Kale, born around 2020 or 2021. She has been holding things down on her own, with no cosigns, no blog clout, no reality show checks. She wasn't part of the usual drama rotation, just a mother handling her business. But then something shifted. Something involving her son coming home from a visit at YoungBoy and Jaslyn's place with a mark on his hand that she said she wasn't accepting at face value. And whatever that moment was, it woke up a side of her that had clearly been simmering for a long time. A viral compilation posted by the account Since Day One on X stitched her clips together and pulled in hundreds of thousands of views almost instantly. The caption framed everything neatly, presenting Arcola as confirming what certain fans had been whispering for months. In that post, Jaslyn was painted as, in their words, a wolf in sheep's clothing, looking innocent, while allegedly moving in a different way behind the scenes. And Arcola sat in front of that camera with a level of raw, collected frustration that only comes from years of holding things in. That word burn became the central point of the whole situation, because the mark on Kale's finger was the base of every claim Arcola built on top of it. She wasn't interested in any alternative story. When she texted Jaslyn about the mark on her son's hand, Jaslyn replied that it was a dog bite. Arcola didn't just disagree. She went on camera, held up her own hand, and demonstrated why she said that explanation didn't make sense. Her exact words were clear. That's not a dog bite. And that is exactly what she did, right there on the live. She started pulling up photos of actual dog bites and holding them next to the mark on her son's hand like she was presenting evidence in a courtroom. She turned her stream into a full breakdown, showing comparisons and speaking like she was delivering the final argument of a case she had studied for years. The word burned took over every comment section where the clip spread. People were analyzing screenshots, pointing out the shape of the mark, the color, the placement on the finger. The internet didn't even wait for the full explanation. Folks were already forming opinions before she could finish what she was saying. Now here's the part that matters, because this story is being covered responsibly. As of March 4th, 2026, there are no police reports on record, no confirmed public CPS investigation, and no official verification of the burn claim. These are Arcola's allegations, made live in real time while she was clearly in one of the most emotional moments of her life. But she stood behind every word. She believed it strongly enough to attach her name to it in front of millions. She was also upset about what she said didn't happen after the injury. She questioned why, if this was really a dog bite, nobody took Kale to get a tetanus shot. She questioned why there was no medical follow-up of any kind. For any parent watching that live, those details hit harder than anything else. Those details became the whole conversation. Then she moved past the injury itself and into something deeper, something she hinted had been weighing on her for a long time. She accused YoungBoy of not being a truly consistent, present father to Kale, claiming the pickups were just for social media, the visits were for image, and the everyday responsibility fell completely on her. And once she shifted to speaking directly about Jaslyn, the wolf in sheep's clothing idea that fans had thrown around stopped feeling like gossip and started sounding like something viewers felt was being proven in real time. She said Jaslyn sat in that house acting like she was superior, comfortable, and protected, while everything else fell on someone else. She wasn't just calling Jaslyn out for being unfaithful. She was going after the whole persona, the polished image that made Jaslyn look untouchable, calm, and above all, the chaos. Arcola made it clear she believed that image was crafted on purpose, and that the woman behind it knew exactly what she was doing and exactly why she was doing it. She said the persona wasn't real, and she said it publicly for everyone to hear. By this point, the live had stopped being a co-parenting argument. It turned into a full breakdown of who Jaslyn really was and whether the stable home life YoungBoy had been showing the world was something he actually built or something he was just selling to the public. Then Arcola dropped the line that froze the whole chat. "My son didn't do anything, he's innocent. She still asks about your dirty." And under all the anger, under every sharp word she threw, there was something that hit people differently. A child who still asks about his father, who still says he misses him, is not a punchline. It's not a soundbite. It's a real kid in a real situation. Even in one of the rawest moments of her life, Arcola landed a line that felt too honest to ignore. The internet didn't agree on everything else she said, but they agreed that part was heavy. People even said Shorty had bars. Everything that led to this blowup had roots, and one of the biggest moments between Arcola and YoungBoy goes back to November 2023. That's when Arcola publicly accused YoungBoy of having two women run up on her at his Utah home while he was on house arrest. She said she had pulled up to get kale. She said things got physical fast. She said she took a hit above her eye that left her needing 5 stitches and that she was holding her baby when it happened. The whole thing allegedly started because she wanted YoungBoy to cover her flight costs to pick up her own child. Texts involving Jaslyn surfaced in the middle of that money argument, even though Jaslyn wasn't accused of being part of the actual altercation. And Arcola said she wasn't pressing charges, but she made sure the streets knew exactly what happened. That was 2023. By the time 2026 rolled around, nothing between them had improved. If anything, the situation had gotten colder, heavier, and way more tense. So when Arcola announced on that March 2026 live that she was taking YoungBoy to court for child support, with a court date already locked in for June 26, 2026 at 8 in the morning, nobody who had been following their history should have been shocked. She wasn't bluffing. She wasn't testing the waters. She had already filed the paperwork. The case was already active. The live was just the moment she decided to let the world know. She ended one of her rants with a send-off that only hits when someone knows their next move is already official. "See you June 26th at 8 a.m. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk." That wasn't a warning, that was a scheduled appointment. Her accusations about YoungBoy's parenting went way deeper than the injury conversation. She called him a deadbeat, saying he only shows up for photos and videos, the kind of content that makes him look like a hands-on father online. But when it came to real work, like diapers, day-to-day care, or steady financial support, she said he wasn't present. And when she explained why, she kept it blunt. He got a whole football team of kids. Of course he's gonna be a deadbeat. 13 children, 10 mothers. People started doing the math in real time, thinking about how much time and presence one man could realistically give to each child while also juggling house arrest, legal cases, a music career, and a marriage. The numbers weren't lining up in a way that made sense to anybody watching, but this was never going to stay between Arcola and YoungBoy. Nothing in his world stays a two-person situation for long. The first person to pop up and pour more heat into the mix was Yaya Mayweather, also known as Ayanna Mayweather, daughter of Floyd Mayweather and mother of YoungBoy's son, Kentrell Jr. And if you know anything about this story, you already know Yaya is not a side character. She's one of the main players in the entire YoungBoy timeline, and her history in this whole situation goes into some very dark chapters. On the night of April 3rd, 2020, at YoungBoy's home in Houston, Texas, Yaya stabbed LaPatra Jacobs, another one of his children's mothers, multiple times in the arm. It started with Yaya pulling up, seeing LaPatra inside, and what began as a verbal argument turned into real violence. She was arrested on aggravated assault with a weapon, a second-degree felony carrying a possible sentence of 2 to 20 years. In April 2022, she pleaded guilty and received 6 years of deferred adjudication probation. Then in November 2025, years after the incident, she posted a public apology, mentioning her parents and addressing LaPatra Jacobs directly, framing the whole thing as growth and accountability. She was trying to move forward. But the moment the Since Day One compilation started exploding across the timeline in March 2026, Yaya stepped right back into the conversation. She began retweeting and co-signing posts pushing the narrative that Jaslyn was not as innocent as she looked. Yaya wasn't on live shouting or breaking down. Her approach was more calculated, but the message she sent was easy to read. She agreed that the clean, quiet wife image didn't line up with what she believed was really going on behind the scenes. Coming from someone with her history in this world, her cosign carried more weight than anything a random commenter could ever say. Jaslyn's sister, Caliente, jumped in almost immediately, calling Yaya out with screenshots and her own accusations. She said Yaya was being two-faced, sending private apologies while throwing shade in public. That turned into a whole side conflict on its own. More sisters got named, more screenshots landed, more old messages resurfaced. Suddenly, the internet was tracking multiple storylines at once, all converging on the same point. They were all aimed at Jaslyn's reputation and at the growing question of whether the life she had presented as YoungBoy's wife was truly stable or just polished for the timeline. An older situation started resurfacing with new energy. A December 2024 storytime video from an Instagram model who goes by 7TV began circulating again. In that video, she claimed she had been flown out to YoungBoy's Utah home in 2022 while he was already locked in with Jaslyn, and that she had a whole encounter with him there. Arcola brought that story up directly during her live. She wasn't just saying Jaslyn was getting played. She was saying Jaslyn knew what was going on, or at the very least had every reason to know, and still chose to stay because the lifestyle, the marriage, and the financial security meant more than facing the truth. Whether that's accurate or not, the narrative spread fast. And for someone whose entire image was built on being the calm, untouched, above-the-mess wife, having that kind of story pinned to your name in front of millions is not something you brush off. Then came the detail that hit YoungBoy's reputation harder in 2 days than anything Arcola had said about Jaslyn. Reports surfaced that during their back and forth, YoungBoy allegedly said, "Forget his son," supposedly just to get under Arcola's skin during an argument. Whether those were his exact words, whether the context was twisted, or whether he said it out of anger without meaning it the way it sounded, none of that mattered once it reached the timeline. The internet took it as fact and moved fast. And the reaction had a different tone than his past controversies, because fans who had supported him through shootings, gun charges, legal chaos, and years of public drama suddenly went quiet. There was no spin that could make that statement look okay. There was no angle that erased the weight of it, especially when the child in question is 5 years old and, according to his mother, still asks about his father and says he misses him. YoungBoy reportedly deactivated his Twitter DX account for a bit in the days after. And this was after he had already been publicly positioning himself as Jaslyn's protector, telling people to stop speaking on her and to keep her name out of their mouths. He had been calling Jaslyn his motivation and his source of stability, but the mix of Arcola's live streams, Yaya's quiet cosign, the 7TV story resurfacing, and the alleged comment about his son created a wave that his usual explanations couldn't fully handle. And this is where the bigger picture comes in, because the idea of Jaslyn being placed above the other mothers and children didn't begin in 2026. It started in November 2022, and the person who created that narrative was YoungBoy himself. In an emotional Instagram post around November 20th, 2022, he publicly announced he was cutting off contact with most of his children. He said certain mothers were using the kids as leverage, damaging his reputation, and trying to control him through drama. He said those children would have to reach out to him on their own when they were old enough to understand the situation. And in that same message, he lifted Jaslyn above everyone else. He wrote, "Jasmine told me to stop trusting these." He credited her. He defended her. He made it clear she was the only one in his world he believed was being honest with him. For the mothers of those children, including Arcola, who had already been raising Kale on her own, that post wasn't just a gut punch. It was a line in the sand. It showed exactly where they stood and exactly who had his attention. And for Arcola in particular, who would later make serious allegations in 2023 and eventually sit on live in March 2026 comparing burn marks to dog bites. That November 2022 post might have been the first domino, the moment that set this long chain reaction into motion. Then there's the bigger story behind the man himself. YoungBoy's rise never started from a calm place. It began in Baton Rouge with a father who was sentenced to 55 years before Kentrell was even old enough to grasp what that meant. It continued with him being raised by his grandmother, who passed away from heart failure soon after one of his releases from juvenile detention. The one person he has described in his own words as his protection, his comfort, his everything. That's where his story begins. It also starts with a wrestling accident when he was around 4 years old that broke his neck and left him with permanent scars from a halo brace. He started rapping at 14 with a cheap Walmart microphone because that was all he could get his hands on. At 16, he was locked up for attempted first-degree homicide connected to a drive-by shooting. He took a plea deal, came home, and walked right back into the studio like it was just part of the routine, because for him, it actually was. By August 2017, he had signed to Atlantic Records for a reported $2 million deal. By 2019, he was the most watched YouTube artist in the entire United States for 101 straight weeks. He became the first rapper in history to land 3 #1 albums on the Billboard 200 in under a year. He recorded and released Sincerely, Kentrell from Behind Bars in 2021, debuting at #1. Making him only the 3rd artist ever to do that after Tupac and Lil Wayne. And through all of this, the drama didn't stop. The legal cases didn't stop. The headlines surrounding his personal life never slowed down. Somehow it all became fuel for him. In 2018, surveillance footage surfaced showing YoungBoy allegedly throwing and dragging his then-girlfriend, Jania Miel, through a hotel hallway in Waycross, Georgia. He was indicted by a grand jury on aggravated assault and kidnapping charges. In December 2019, he pleaded guilty to a reduced misdemeanor simple battery charge, paid the fine, completed probation, and kept moving. The career didn't pause. The streams didn't drop. The fan base didn't disappear. In that same Billboard cover interview where he opened up about what all of this had actually cost him internally, he said something that made people stop and pay attention. It was the kind of self-reflection you rarely hear from someone at his level, and it takes on a different weight when you understand the background. It came from a man who had been living inside controversy every year of his adult life, and he didn't stop there. He kept talking, and what came next felt less like a crafted media moment and more like a man trying to work through something real, out loud, in front of whoever happened to be listening. That version of YoungBoy sounded completely different from the one who used to hop on live and brush off his children's mothers a few years earlier. And whether you believe his reflections were genuine or just good PR, it still matters, because it shows where his mindset was supposed to be as this new wave of drama hits everything he has been trying to rebuild. When he finally came off house arrest, he received a presidential pardon in May 2025 on his gun charges. The freedom that followed hit fast. His Make America Slime Again tour turned into a powerhouse run, grossing around $70 million, moving over 550,000 tickets with 42 shows across the US. The energy in those arenas made it clear that his fan base had never backed away from him during the years he spent restricted. Slime Cry dropped in January 2026 and debuted at #6 on the Billboard 200. And he hasn't slowed down. He's lining up a European tour, planning up to 4 more projects for 2026, prepping a concert documentary, and launching 38 films. On paper, he looks locked in and focused. The bag is sealed. So where does Arcola's Live fit into all of this? Where does the Burn allegation land? The child support case? The Yaya cosign? The Jaslyn fallout? How do any of these pieces connect when you stack them next to the reality of his career status today? Truthfully, in the short term, it doesn't change much commercially. YoungBoy's core audience, the 4K T-faithful, the day ones who were there during the Baton Rouge tape era, don't operate like mainstream fans. They are not checking gossip pages before streaming a new project. They've watched him survive shootings, indictments, house arrest stretches, public breakups, baby mama conflict, and a federal gun case. They haven't folded yet. The drama has never been the thing that pushed them away. If anything, it's part of why they connect to him. He raps about real pain because the pain is real. They know that. They relate to it. They feel something in his music that isn't about image or perfection. And co-parenting chaos isn't going to break that bond. His career has already survived a kidnapping indictment, a hotel assault caught on camera, and more legal battles than most artists see in a lifetime. Federal firearms charges, multiple house arrest violations, and years of public conflict with the mothers of his children. And he still came out the other side with more records broken, more albums charted, and more cultural weight than before. He reportedly dropped over 300 songs while on house arrest between 2021 and 2025. He debuted at #1 from a prison cell. He broke the all-time Billboard 200 rapper record from a Utah mansion while barely allowed to move. The music has never been the fragile part of his story. But this is where things shift, because there is a version of this situation where the damage becomes real, even if it never shows up on a streaming chart. The child injury allegation, even without verification, puts a different kind of spotlight on YoungBoy. It's not the same category as his past controversies. Every issue before this was about his decisions, his actions, his charges, his behavior. What Arcola is bringing forward involves a child, a 5-year-old who has no say in any of this, who came home from a visit with a mark his mother didn't recognize, and whose father allegedly responded by saying, "Forget his son," during an argument. That is a different type of accusation. It invites a different kind of attention, the kind that doesn't come from gossip pages, but from people asking heavier questions. Questions about accountability when you have 13 children. Questions about whether the troubled genius narrative that has protected him for years is starting to hit a limit. The deadbeat dad label has been thrown at him before, but it has never arrived at the same time as an injury allegation and a confirmed upcoming court hearing. Because the child support case is not just talk, it's locked in. June 26, 2026, 8 in the morning. That is no longer a line said during a heated moment online. That is a date on an actual courthouse calendar, and court dates bring a whole different type of attention. It's slower, more formal, harder to twist, and almost impossible to make disappear. And what this entire situation ends up showing is something that has always been true about YoungBoy, even if people rarely say it directly. His career has never been the vulnerable part of his story. The music has always been the constant. It kept dropping, kept charting, kept expanding no matter what was falling apart around him. He released over 300 songs while stuck on house arrest. He hit #1 from a prison cell. He broke all-time records while wearing an ankle monitor. The music is solid. The bag is locked in. The legacy is already carved out. What has never been fully secure, what has always been the exposed nerve in his image, is the family narrative. The story he tries to tell about himself as a father, as a husband, as a man who found stability in the middle of non-stop chaos. Jaslyn was the center of that story, the calm wife, the one who stood by him when everything else around him was shaky, the proof that behind the chaos, a real home existed. Arcola's live stream didn't just question that idea, it called the whole presentation staged. It suggested the stability was more of a brand than real life. It painted a picture where children from previous relationships were being overlooked while one woman enjoyed the ring and the lifestyle. Whether any of that holds up in a courtroom is a separate issue, but the hit to the narrative, the story, the image he has been building is already done. And millions of people who watch that live are going to look at June 26th in a completely different way. Did Arcola destroy his career? No, not even close. But did she expose something that was already cracking and put it in front of the entire internet? Without a doubt. And with a story this layered, this public, and a court date already confirmed, cracks rarely stay cracks for long. If you've been following along, drop a comment, hit like, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and I'll see you on the next one.